Yuri, you know it, you love it, you love it, you love it. Yuri is a genre of media focusing on intimate relationships between female characters. It's gay, and I draw it. I've got a Yuri comic of my own, all about a bunny and capybara couple. They work together and go through problems together and put their lips together. I draw it, like, a lot. It's already got 60 plus drawings to its name. Sure, it's a single panel comic, so it's less like 60 issues and more like 60 pages, maybe less than that. But some of them are animations too, so blah. Considering it started in early September 2025, that's a good bit of drawing. I'll be honest, I could keep drawing these two every day till the day I die. But I know branching out and drawing new characters is going to be best for me in the long term. How would I have created Varying Caprice if I wasn't making new things in the first place? So let's try something new. Let's do something spontaneous, something wild. We don't even have to draw Yuri. We can draw Yaoi. I will not be drawing Yaoi. It's pretty hard to draw men romantically when you hate men romantically. I can tolerate NPs, but drawing men is where I draw the line. You can tolerate enemies? We're drawing women! Women kissing! Women looking at each other with hunger in their eyes. If you've got a problem with that, go back to your island or whatever and follow your leader. With that out of the way, let's get started making those characters. We're designing new characters. I know it says that in the title, but I'm telling you in case you autoplayed this video and you didn't see it because you're falling asleep or whatever. In that case, Joe Biden. Romance is a thing different for everybody, and everybody enjoys romance differently. But I am an entertainer, a performance artist. My goal is to spark emotions with my work, so we must evaluate the tools of which we will use to elicit emotion. Our most potent tool is contrast. Why did I say that like Jack Black? Imagine two characters holding hands. Aww. If they were the exact same, that would be quite boring. But change the color of one of them, and suddenly we have a story. The differences between partners are what makes a relationship interesting. What gives a story conflict. Beauty and the Beast, Princess and the Frog, White Woman and the Dog. They're all so different from each other, yet their relationship flourishes despite that. Many think homosexuality throws a wrench into this concept because now we just have two white women, and that's not interesting. But I think it's time we learn a lesson from the oldest Yuri known to tramp. Yin and Yang. You might think these two complete opposites, but they're not. Inside Yin is a little bit of Yang, and inside Yang is a little bit of Yin. Not just that, they're the exact same shape, size, and pattern. They only have one difference, their color. It's only because they have things both alike and not alike that we find their dynamic interesting. We used Belle and the Beast as an example before, and yes, she's a human girl and he's a monster man. But think of how much they have in common. They both love reading, they both put others before themselves, they both feel othered by the world around them. They've already got so many things different and similar about them. So, what if they were both women? Differences highlight their similarities, and similarities highlight their differences. And that, I think, is beautiful. So let's choose a theme for this romance that has much common ground, but so much different too. For the theme, let's do cowboys and Indians. One moment. Let's do pirates and ninjas. We'll start with the pirate because they're the one with the loudest personality. Brash, smelly, incoherent, those just seem like things easy to put into a character. We're mainly going to be sticking to a circular shape for the head. That way they have a more cartoony, unrealistic look to them. Pirates are less grounded. They're more free to be different and silly. For her face, I think half-circle eyes will establish a sort of aloof nature. Their big, bushy eyebrows, too, will get across their bombastic personality and general lack of personal hygiene. All with a big crescent smile. Above all else, they're here for a good time. A big, giant pirate hat would definitely communicate their occupation, but I fear it might make her look a little too important. She's not a captain, just a member of the crew. So we'll be sticking with the good old bandana, which to me is just as iconically piratey. Her hair is spiky, which obviously conveys her electric personality, like wearing a big kiki on her head. Let's give her big giant ears too. It's a trait I find kind of monkey-like in the animal way and the loopy way. She's going to be taking a lot of cues from One Piece, if you can tell, just because it's one of the most iconic pirate stories of our day. I'm also just a big fan of it. Bah humbug. Her body is going to be pretty short and stout. Nothing's more brash and obnoxious than a Napoleon complex. Of course we're giving her a peg leg. It'd be criminal not to include it on this criminal. She's got her hand on her hip in a sharp 90-degree angle to really convey her confidence, attitude, and strength. 90-degree angles also just look really cute on stubby characters, so why doesn't she have an eye patch? Get her an eye patch right now! Get her an eye patch! Her torso is also going to be big and long, mainly inspired by the Wind Waker, which, if you don't know, is Pirate Central. We're going to be taking a lot of elements from that too. The belts are just to define her waist, while also looking cool as fuck with the second one hanging down. They also help tuck in her big baggy pantaloons? Are they called pantaloons? Yes they are. For her coat, I was torn between the two iconic pirate looks. The big fancy coat or the lackey striped sleeveless shirt. She kind of fits both of them, so why not do both? She'll be wearing a big cool coat, but it's torn on one half, exposing her shoulder and her shirt on one side. I think it suits both roles and gets across a pirate's general sense of disarray. I wanted there to be a sleeve on at least one of them. That way it looks natural going into her hook hand, yeah? Hook hand, yeah! Hook hands are so cool. She needs one. Let's also add some extra spikes to the back of her hair to fill her out. I struggled with the nose for a second until I decided it'd just be better if she had a piece of one. What you gonna do? And with that, we have a pretty nice rough outline for a design. We've got everything in concept, now we just need the shape to define them. Onto our ninja. She's going to be tall and lean, as opposed to our pirate's stubby nature. Her head shape is rough right now, but it's just to get the idea. We'll go ahead and fix it later. She's going to be much more realistic, and as such, I'm going to shape her entire body before I get to fashioning her. I will though, however, add her Kakashi headband, because I think that's just the sick as fuck way to wear one. On top of that, I want to parallel the pirate's missing eye, so one of them only has their left eye, and the other only has their right. In a way, they complete each other. Getting her size and proportions right was a challenge because I want a more realistic body structure than the pirate, but I also have to make sure she looks good and fits next to the pirate. Basically, it's a balancing act between big head and tiny head. Now's the time I reshape her face. The nose is the center of the face and defines the curvature for you to place your features onto, so we'll be starting with that. Her arm is going to be drooping down behind her, almost slack, because she's a ninja. She's effective yet effortless. It takes me a second to carve out the specific shape I want, but I find it eventually. I want her to be more top-heavy as opposed to the pirate's bottom heaviness. Focus. But right now, she's a little too big on top. So while I like the verticality, I'm not a big fan of her big giant bobblehead. So let's scale that down. That's nice. And I left a little room in her torso for her proportions to feel a little more natural. Now it's just time to define her shape a little. The arm's angle needs to be adjusted because of the scale. And I want to define her hips a little better. Her general figure is inspired more by a 90s style where it's all legs every day. Think Sailor Moon. She's not nearly as lucky as Sailor Moon, but in comparison to the pirate, she's pretty damn leg. Her hand is coiled a little, holding a kunai. It doesn't show that in the final art, but I just wanted to let you know it's there. Let's bring her shoulders back a little more. Really exaggerate a ninja's unique sense of attitude. Now it's time to clothe her, and let's start with her most striking article, her scarf. It's giant, but I want it to stand out. It'll be loose and flowing, gentle like her. Let's add her headband because it's going to be the center of her face. She's going to have the standard kunoichi, I remember. Kunoichi fit. You know the one. The forearm sleeves and the chainmail covered by the gi, a waist strap defining her figure, and 2 segments of the gi splitting at the thigh. I was loose with the design of the footwear for now. I know I just need that iconic shrimp glow. That iconic shin guard they all have, as well as the split toes, of course. As wonderful as it'd be having her bare ass hanging out Nami style, that would just go completely counter to who this character is. The exposed shoulders are pushing it. Exposed legs are out of the question. She's a professional! Onto the hair, she's going to have her hair back in a high ponytail, flowing back in a way similar to her scarf. It'll ripple to and fro in a maybe unrealistic manner, but a cool one nonetheless. Though, I did redo it to give it a little more attitude, with some straight hairs sticking out saying, maybe she's not quite as put together as she'd like you to believe. And it seems like the sketch is done for her too. Let's move them a little closer together for a more cohesive pose. I used blue and red on the 2 of them so I would be able to tell their lines apart, but I'll use much closer and darker colors for the final lines. The colors are very not final on a first draft, mainly just to get the groundwork laid for you to build on top of later. I'm using a nice dark purple for my lines just because that's a good color in between red and blue. My pencil is a deal thinner than you might expect looking at my art, but that's because of the specific way I stroke my brush. I'm stroking my brush. I have incredibly shaky hands, and while it's gotten better as I've started taking heart medicine, the fact still remains my lines are very unstable and longer strokes. So I just don't do long strokes. I do a series of smaller strokes, and with a more scattered brush, they all come together into one line seamlessly. After all the lines are down on the line art, then I go over them again to bolden them. That's where I get my thick lines. I don't just go in with a giant paintbrush and go ham. I'm very particular with how I like my bold lines. Because of my specific technique in drawing lines, the specific orientation of lines matters to how I draw them. I draw with my wrist, not my elbow, and your wrist rotates in a very specific curve, like a compass. So when the lines don't align with the curve of my wrist, they're much harder to draw. That's why I rotate my canvas so much. I'm shifting the lines to align with how my wrist moves. So if a line is a horizontal stick, I'll rotate my canvas 90 degrees so it's vertical and easier for me to draw. I also do my best not to have too many lines intersecting into one corner, like how it might have looked where the hair meets the ear and the bandana. We've already gone over most of the design choices you're seeing already, so I hope it's okay if I talk about my art in a more general sense during the parts of the process that require less creative decisions. Just be a good pup and enjoy the time-lapse of me going over the rough lines with clean lines. Good pup. I also decided to give her earrings just because I thought those looked piratey. They're Zoro's earrings, if you can tell. I'm drawing the 2 on separate layers in case I need to separate them for some reason. I didn't end up doing that, but it's very common that I would do that, and separating layers makes that process a million times easier. I set the pirate layer to semi-transparent not because I'm going to go over it again, but because I want to be able to visually distinct the ninja layer from the pirate layer. That way, if I accidentally draw on the pirate on the ninja layer, I'll be able to tell immediately what's wrong. Damn, I should really give them some names. I like having some time to give characters names, because then I get to know the characters and what they're like. A lot of the time, a character isn't entirely defined before I draw them. Most of the time, cute little details will pop into my mind that will suit the drawing, and that becomes a part of their character going forward. Or my audience will interpret a character in a way I haven't considered yet, but I like more than what I have, so not naming them now is a deliberate choice, not just me being lazy. Once you name them, you can't change that really. That's what your audience knows them as, so I've got to have time to think it over. It took me a long time to name one of my other series' main characters, Lily. I had probably made like 20 or so drawings of her before I got to naming her. It was honestly kind of a running joke that nobody knew it. But it was when I introduced another character, Brachial, that I knew I had to get a name for her. If you're gonna have a conversation between 2 established characters, having a name helps for the establishment, especially for the captions of drawings. If I wanted to caption a drawing, Brachial goes to Costco, I'd have to have a name to tell you who it is that's going to Costco. God, it's such a gift that I can tell a story and people will be interested. Like, you can convince most people to blink 3 times at you, much less ask them to invest themselves in the characters and narrative you're trying to tell them. So it's just the highest privilege that so many people want to actively hear the story that I want to tell. I worked at McDonald's, and it crushed my soul. I mean, literally crushed my souls. My feet tore apart from standing for so long. But I could bear my body being in constant pain. No, I don't. No, I can't. But what got me to quit was just how unhappy every single person was. The customers were unhappy because they were spending their hard-earned money on overpriced slop, because they're too tired or too busy to cook or get something better. And my coworkers were unhappy because you're working at fucking McDonald's! It's hard-ass work and you're getting paid shit. In my first month of art commissions, I made more money than the first 2 months of McDonald's. And it was doing something I loved doing. And that's a deal I'm not gonna pass up for the world. But Twitter is, let's just say, problematic for fostering a consistent career. It's like a shit-ass website, number one. Let's just get that out of the way. It's run by a Nazi, which I really wish wasn't the case. But it's the biggest hub of text and image content on the internet. It's the best place for me to grow as a 2D artist and make funny little pictures. But I'm not just a 2D artist. I want to make more than just funny little pictures. I want to craft stories and narratives and things people care about. And it felt like Twitter was holding me back. I wanted to express things a little more complex than 100 characters would allow. So now I'm here on YouTube. I'm still making silly little pictures, but I also have pretty extensive experience in video editing, and I wanted to make use of it to make things people cared about. It's a new medium, so it's not quite as highly regarded, but I see YouTube videos as very esteemed pieces of art. So if I have the opportunity to make these pieces of art, I'm gonna take it. Why not throw together the things I'm best at? Video editing and art into something people can enjoy. I'm sorry I'm rambling on and on about myself, and this is a video about fucking Pirate X Ninja Yuri. But I'm an artist. If you're looking for something enjoyable but nothing else, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. I don't make quarter pounders anymore. I make art now. Speaking of which, I should probably get back to talking about the drawing of my art. Now that all my lines are drawn, we're going to go over them a second time to ripen them up, exaggerate them, and give your eyes something to chew on. The first lines we're going to go over are the very outest lines. That's because we want these lines to always be the thickest. Having a bold outer line can really help define a drawing's silhouette and make the piece whole. It's okay to be a little more rough with these lines. I'm kinda going for a sketchy vibe anyways. When we get to the inner lines, that's when we're gonna be more delicate. But for now, go crazy. You'll notice I made them solid red and blue. That's because I wanted to keep them both completely opaque while still being able to tell them apart. Both the layers themselves are actually a solid black right now. They're both just in their own groups with a colored alpha inherited layer on top of them. Alpha inheritance is a little checkmark you can turn on, and that means it'll inherit the alpha of the layer below it in a group. Alpha simply means transparency, whether something is or isn't showing up. So while there is a layer of solid blue all over the canvas right now, the layer's transparency is inherited from the layer below it in the group, the pirate. So the blue only shows up on the lines of the pirate, making the pirate blue. The same thing goes for the ninja with red. The reason I do this is to keep the layers distinct, so I know which one I draw on at all times, like I said. So if I draw on the pirate on the ninja layer, it'll show up as red instead of blue, and I know I'm doing something wrong. Now, I'm just touching up all the inner lines and making them bolder. I don't have any problems with thin lines, it's just for my more exaggerated and simple character design, thicker lines do a good job in filling out a drawing. A bold line is, in a way, an implication of many smaller lines, all cohesing into one. The act of life being defined by as few lines as possible, a lot of the time is what makes things cute. That's why I like bolder lines. Now, let me preface this. Coloring is a process, and like many processes, it doesn't look good until the very last step. Just because you're 50% done with a cake does not mean you have half a cake ready. So it may look questionable or iffy for a while, but it will all come together in the very end, okay? Okay, give me a little cookie promise. Thank you. Before we get too far into coloring, we have to get a little green. We're going to be working with whites in this drawing, so we want to have a background color that can be distinguished from white. That way, when we finish our drawing, their eyes won't be black 2019 OC style. I picked green as the background color because it's a color we're not really going to be using in this drawing. Our main two colors for this drawing will be blues for the pirate and reds for the ninja. You'll notice already though that our pirate's hair is yellow. That's not your designated color. That's because we're going to do a yin-yang thing. There's a little bit of yin and yang, and there's a little bit of warm colors in the cool color one. Vice versa for the ninja. Let's go with a rich purple for the pantaloons. It's neighbors with blue, and it gets across that audaciously expensive vibe. She probably stole them right off the legs of a noble. Let's also make those whites not quite as white. While striking, pure white is rare. Something would have to be very bright or very clean to be pure white. And let's be honest, a pirate is neither of those things. Let's also reuse that purple on the pants for the stripes on her bandana. It's generally a good idea with simplistic designs like these to keep the color palette to a minimum. The ninja will have a smaller palette than the pirate, but I feel like it just makes sense for a pirate to be mismatched a little. I considered for a second making the pirate's hair the same silver as her hook, but I didn't like it one bit. The contrast suits her a lot better. Moving on to our ninja friend, let's start with the most powerful color first, then work out from there. She has a rich amaranth scarf, so let's start off with that. Such a nuanced color. I'm a big fan. Moving on to the hair, we're gonna use the same silver we used on the pirate. There's gonna be a dichotomy of gold and silver between them, where the pirate has gold hair and wears silver, and the ninja has silver hair and wears gold. Usually a ninja's headband is silver, but I think it looks absolutely lovely in gold. We're going to use two warm grays for her clothing, one light and one dark. I think it'd look really boring if they were all the same shade of black. For his skin tone, I'll do something a bit tan. It's pretty boring just to have characters be white as day, and it wouldn't make sense for a pirate since she's out in the sun all day. So she's a little tan too. In hindsight, I think I should have made their skin tones a little more contrasting just for variety's sake. I deliberated on the color of her shoe anklet thingies, originally just thinking it should be her two grays, but I decided on silver and gold would look best. Yeah, it breaks the silver and gold dichotomy for her to be wearing silver, but it's just a little, so who cares? Pirate has gold tooth, so maybe it isn't breaking the dichotomy. Blah! Onto the shading. I will admit, I'm not the best at shading. Most of that comes down to whether the shit I throw at the wall sticks. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. A lot of my art, especially recently, tends to be a lot more cute, so many drawings look better with no shading, with just flat colors. Like Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty looks good because she's simple, not in spite of it. If we added 100 shading layers to her, I think it would just muddle down her appeal, so I haven't been shading too much recently. But this drawing requires a little more depth and volume than my cuter drawings. I'm shading on a semi-transparent multiply layer, and using a dark red for the warm colors and a dark blue for the cool colors. Using multiply instead of a standard normal layer really helps shadows feel varied and interesting, as well as using multiple colors for cool and warm shadows. I have a policy not to use plain black for shadows. If you see a drawing of mine with semi-transparent black shadows, call the police. My identity's been stolen. There's a dozen or so rules on how to shade appealingly, and I don't have the time to get into all of them here. But here's probably my most fundamental rule. Shadows rarely ever are strongest at the end of something, unless there's another shadow being casted onto it. Light bounces off nearly everything. Color itself is just light reflecting off of things. So, the light and color of objects are going to bounce onto the other objects around it, creating a sort of counter light to your light source. The biggest example of this is the moon. Even in the shadow of the Earth, where the light from the sun can't reach, if the moon is still being hit by the sun, its color is going to be reflected onto the Earth, and that's how we get moonlight. Also the Fisher effect. As you foreshorten something, you're seeing the same amount of area take up less space in your view. That also means all the light of that area is being condensed into the small space of your view, so it might appear as if it's brighter on that side. But it's merely because all the light is being gathered into a small area of your view. This means the edges of things facing more away from your view might appear lighter, so the edges of objects don't need to be shaded as the darkest part. We're not even doing 2 shades of shadow in this, so it's a little lost in this example, but but the philosophy still applies to how you place one simple shadow. Now, onto the last step, polish. This is where we bring a drawing from good to great. We'll touch up the colors and fill in those nasty little gaps. Sometimes I skip doing it because I'm a lazy girl. But the step I always do is fucking with the colors. Ask yourself a few questions. How cohesive are my colors in the color wheel? How bright are my colors and how dark are my lines? Is there enough contrast between them? Am I satisfied with the level of saturation I currently have? Or could I raise it a little to make this drawing really pop? These are all questions you should ask yourself, and there's no right answers to them, only what you think is true. And that's all that matters to me, because I like colors that pop and contrast. In some drawings, I think the colors should only be slightly lighter than the lines. But with this one, I thought it would be best if the lines were significantly darker than the colors. I do all this with saturate layers, screen layers, overlay layers, the works, until it looks right to me. This step is all about your personal philosophy and what you want to do with your drawing now that the groundwork is laid. Now, we're done! It's finished, and I'm satisfied with this drawing. They're a cute little set of goobers, and I look forward to drawing them in the future. Along with the normal recording I did with OBS, here's a second recording done by my drawing software itself that shows up with a complete view of the process. It looks very nice, but it did this by creating 4,286 unique full PNGs of the thing. So I'm gonna have to delete that folder right after I'm done with this video. Like I said, I zoom and rotate a lot, so I'm glad we have this view of the drawing. Woof. It's been fun taking you along one of my many drawing adventures. I've never really had an outlet before to properly express my feelings about my art and the thought that goes into it. It's always just been, boom, post it to Twitter and maybe some people will like it. And maybe some people will like it more and they might even ask a question. But I want more than that. Now more than ever, we live in a time with a lot of soulless content. And I mean, literally, there isn't a living soul behind it. It's pushed out, churned out, not to say anything, not to express anything, not to be greater than the 30 seconds it lasts. Just a boring burger meant to get you through the day. But you don't want slow. You want to feel something, taste something, not some burger that's been made literally billions of times. No, you want to see the chef. Know the chef, where he gets his ingredients, how he learned the recipe, every single tool he uses to make an amazing meal. You want to know it because that lets you know someone cares about this. That's all I want. Someone who cares. Thank you for caring, and thank you for listening to me ramble on and on about my gay little drawing. You don't realize how much it means to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see you soon. Thank you. A very, 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 very special thank you to my lovely patrons, Lilo7, Wowie Yowie, Ratjug, Carrot, Punbum, Logan Roth, Bit, Spice, The King of Sands, Luca Ditto, Mika Coverson, One Half of a Hero, Campalon, Mealworm, Lemon Lime Dummy, and Bun Frost. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.